Hey guys, it's Derek from the Fantasy Flyer, and I'm just stopping in to let you know that I have had enough file problems with what I recorded for my final rookie mock draft that we have now started already. It's Friday morning. I recorded this on Wednesday, and the file can't move. It didn't collect all of the recording, and then I tried to do it again, and it didn't collect all the recording again, and then I tried to just redo it again from this exact video, and this kind of like chopped up version of what I did on Wednesday, and it didn't record again. So we're going to try a fourth time and we're just going to quick go through the rankings of what I think will happen here in the first round for the first two rounds. So I do have Caleb going one that has already happened in real life, but I don't think that was a surprise to anyone. I have Dorn at two taking Jaden Daniels. I think he takes quarterback over Marvin Harrison Jr. It's a tough decision. If he doesn't, I will not be surprised because he just fits really well. He has a good wide receiver core already, but he does need the help at quarterback. He can get wide receiver help off of the free agency waiver wire after the drops yesterday. That would leave Matt with Marvin Harrison Jr. That would leave Colton and Malik Neighbors. I think Taylor at 5 is taking Drake May. He dropped all of his quarterbacks. He's a New England fan. Drake May had a really good game last night, which we wouldn't have known 2 days ago. But I still had Drake May there. Drake May going 5. In this case, I would take Jonathan Brooks at 6. At 7, I have Rob taking Xavier Worthy, who just seems to have a little bit more upside now with Marquise Brown being out for a little while. That would leave Colton at 8. I think he's taking Ladd over Brock Bowers. I think whoever doesn't go to Colton goes to Dorn at 9. In this case, I have Ladd going 8. I have Brock Bowers going 9. I have Wacker taking Trey Benson at 10, and then at 2-1 at the turn, doubling up on running back and taking Blake Corum. Why? He needs help there. Honestly, so does Dorn. And I wouldn't be surprised if Dorn went away from Brock Bowers to Benson. But again, looking at the depth of running back that's on the waiver wire, it just makes sense that he can go with the big prospect. He can also get Michael Mayer off of the waiver wire. So moving along. Jimmy at 2-2. I have him taking Brian Thomas Jr. Matt is where it starts to fall apart for me. I have him taking Keon Coleman from Buffalo. That could change, obviously. I mean, running back, I think he would prefer Corum here. I also have someone else at. I mocked a couple people to him. I'll have him taking Coleman here. The other option is honestly Bo Nix. If Nix does not get to me at 2-4, then I don't know what I will do with 2-4 and 2-6. I know at 2-4, if he gets to me, I will be taking Bo Nix. At 2-5, we have Jalen Wright. And at 2-6, I'm taking Jalen Polk. If I keep 2-6, I would prefer Jalen Wright just so I can continue to bolster the running back core. If I am to keep this pick, I would take Jalen Polk. I would probably shop 2-6 if Wright does not get to me at 2-5. 2-7, I have Jimmy taking a running back. Marshawn Lloyd is the most logical sense here. He does need some running back depth. He also has Josh Jacobs, I believe. I could have that wrong. I could have the wrong. Pause. I do. I have the totally wrong roster. So scratch what I just said. He does not have Josh Jacobs. That's Colton. I'm going to stick with Marshawn Lloyd. He does need a little bit of running back help here, I think. Could be wrong. He could be taking a wide receiver like a Ricky Pearsall, and then Sinat would fall down to Dorn, potentially, or Whack. Either one. They both need some tight end help. Dorn would have taken Brock Bowers here. These four actually can all flip in almost any way, in my opinion. So you can almost see, instead of Lloyd being at 7 and Sinat at 8 like I have, and then Adonai. I think Adonai probably stays here, actually. But you could have Pearsall go here. You could see Pearsall. And then Sinat here. And then Lloyd going to Colton. I almost put Floyd, which is wrong. And then Lloyd going to Colton here at 8. I can't put that on, and it's just being loud. So, though that's my first two rounds. I mean, this is, like I said, everything kind of falls apart for me after 2-3. It's a big question mark. I know what I'm doing at 2-4 should Bo Nix get there. My other backup option is Blake Corum. I don't see Blake Corum falling past 2-3 at all. I think 2-3 is his absolute lowest drop point. So that would leave me with between Nix and Wright for these three picks, and I don't think I will get both. I will be able to get one because I'm the first of them if they fall there. But So that's how my draft would go. So now we're gonna see how it actually turns out. Again, the first pick is already in, and it was oh, actually we have two other picks that just came in as I'm recording this for the fourth time. Remember, because that's disgusting. Dorn taking Jaden Daniels at 2, and Matt takes Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3. So as of this recording, I can tell you we have a check mark, a check mark, and a check mark. So Derek is batting 1,000 as of this moment. So we will see what happens going forward, but there are the first 3 picks. There's my board that I recorded on Wednesday. And here we are. And yeah, so I'm going to put this at the beginning of the video where we do the analysis of the teams after the draft. We do the draft analysis essentially all the way through all 6 rounds. It's going to be a little bit of a longer video, but I wanted to put this in at the beginning. So enjoy that. And here is the actual analysis, and you will now find out what happened. So
from the ground, rookies to vets, my team, my vision, placing bold bets, strategies drawn with passion and might, gridiron tactics will overnight, set my line up this time, gotta make that call, dynasty dreams, I won't let them fall, every yard, every play, it's all on me, the future's bright, champions you'll see. Hold the line and fight the sound. In Dynasty, we'll own this ground. Trading players, build it strong. In this league, we'll right the wrong.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
yeah, yep. That about sums it up right there. This is Derek from the Fantasy Flyer. We are back with episode 8. This is the post-draft analysis. We're going to go through all 6 rounds of our rookie draft for the Dynasty League, Fiddy Tree, the greatest league of them all. And I'm going to show you how everybody did, how we got to where we are, and I'm going to let you know my thoughts and the decisions that were made. There were some decisions, some choices. Wasn't that wasn't my best. Wasn't my best. I got thrown a curveball off the rip, and it never really recovered. So we'll go through it all. We'll chit chat, and let's just jump right into it. Why don't we do that? All right. So as I had mentioned on Friday, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison Jr. They are already gone. So I knew I had those 3 right when I recorded the first half of this video that you saw before we ever got to the mess that is this after party that isn't very nice. So we knew that was happening. Malik Neighbors went 4, very easy. Those first 4 were probably set in stone in that, maybe not in that order, but they were the first 4 off the board regardless. No Williams, no Daniels, no Harrison, no Neighbors. There was a trade for the 5th pick, and you will notice down here that Taylor, right here in this neck of the woods, he traded 5 for 7 and a second next year. So he moved down 2 picks. And the person, Rob, who was the very first person on the mock draft of this show with me, he skipped me. He took Jonathan Brooks. He sniped him, if you could say that. I was going to take Jonathan Brooks, as I said at the beginning of this video. So immediately I was thrown off of my horse a little bit. I was, at the end of the day, even going back a couple weeks, I was between JJ and Jonathan Brooks at 1-6. And then JJ got hurt, obviously, earlier, about a week ago now. And I was like, okay, well, I can still possibly go Drake May, but Then I saw that Taylor had dropped all of his quarterbacks, and you start to think about these things. And I did have trade discussions with Taylor for the 1-5 to move up that one spot. He opted to go with Rob's offer, and that cost me Jonathan Brooks at the end of the day. So I went with Drake May, who was next in line. Most of my moves, if you've been following the channel, most of my moves are, they're win now moves, and this isn't one. Ian, who is Tolbertus Galactus in the league, he echoed that sentiment. Well, he told me of that sentiment. I agreed. I was just kind of off my game at this point. So Taylor took Rome Odunze at 7. Colton taking Brock Bowers after Malik Neighbors is honestly probably the best 1-2 punch. It's like the low key the highlight of this first round, because he has definitely a great prospect at the wide receiver spot for the Giants. And then he took Brock Bowers, who's being used in several different ways with the Raiders, and we'll see plenty of field time. Dorn took Xavier Worthy at 109, so he has in the first round. He took Jaden Daniels up here, and then he also took Xavier Worthy down here. So, here. And then Bo Nix at 110 was a little bit of a surprise to me. The mock draft that I had with Rob did include Bo Nix at 110. I believe we had this entire first round right, other than May and Brooks and Odunze. I think those three were swapped in some capacity. So that's how the first round went. And at the end of the first round, I'm sitting here. I tried to trade up to 110 with Wack. He wanted Bo Nix. I think if he had traded with me, Bo would have been there at 2-4, which was my offer was to trade up from 2-4 to 110. I think Bo would have made it there. There was no sign of any of the other quarterbacks going in the next 3 spots. So, but it was Wacker's option not to trade with me, and that's how that went down. So as we move along into the second round, he did take Trey Benson at 2-1. The 1-2 punch that is I expected myself. Nix and Trey. I knew Trey Benson was going to him at the 1-2 turn. It just depended on which way he wanted to go. The only other option was if Dorn took him at 1-9, and I thought that might be a hair early for what you could get for maybe Xavier Worthy. Jimmy took Brian Thomas Jr. at 202, who has been showing out at camp and in preseason. Love that pick for Jimmy. Matt took Blake Corum at 203. No surprise there. I've been mocking Blake Corum to him since the beginning of August. And then I had the option at 204 to take Ladd McConkey or Jalen Wright, and I went with need over talent. And I am kicking myself for this because under pressure, I had some conversations with Taylor at 205. I had some conversation there about whether I could trade 206 for 205 and I could get them both. And he knew at this point, when I'm up at 204, that he doesn't need to do that, and he knows what I'm going for. So he takes Ladd McConkey at 205 after taking Rome Odunze at 107. He's already pretty decent at wide receivers, so it's going to be interesting to see how he plays this. But from my point of view, I was feeling very not deflated. When I saw that these two win, I went with Jalen Wright. I found out some things after the fact, which made me feel better about it. Jalen Wright actually has a better speed score than Devon Achane, given his height and weight. So Achane ran a 4.3340 at his college pro day, or maybe it was the combine. I'm not sure, one of the two. And then the same, I think it was either combine or pro day again for Jalen Wright. He ran a 4.38, but Jalen Wright is 22 pounds heavier and 2 inches taller. So his speed score is actually 99th percentile to Devon Achane's 98th percentile. So when you look at that, it made me feel a little bit better. He can handle more hits, and I do think between Mostert's age and Devon's injury history, Jalen Wright will see an uptick at some point this year. I just don't know. I mean, it's not going to be Ladd McConkey, who's going to be a wide receiver 2 at worst in the Chargers offense, and who can create great separation. So I know immediately after this happens that I let Taylor get a good one. Not to say that Taylor doesn't deserve it, but that I could have had a good wide receiver there, even though my wide receiver room between Pittman, Rashee Rice, T. Higgins, Jamison Williams, I have a good young wide receiver room. Assuming all of them stay healthy and their situations change relatively minimally, I do not need to get rid of any of them, even their contracts. There's nobody who's really crazy expensive. T. Higgins is $40 out of our $500 salary cap. But in general, my wide receiver position is a good combination of young, cheap, and effective. So fingers crossed for that it stays that way. And I do need running back depth. So I'm trying to logic my way into this, but at the end of the day, for lack of a better phrase, I am not feeling great about this to any extent. And I'm up at 206. So as soon as I see Lad McConkey go, I know that I'm like, wow, that was really stupid of me. And I just to myself,
oh fuck, I can't believe you've done this.
And that's just kind of how it went. So, I let him have Lad, and I move on to 2-6, and I immediately start fielding offers, which, as I said in the video at the beginning of this, that I recorded on Friday, depending on who was available at 206, I was going to shop that pick. And I had my mind set that J.J. McCarthy was going to slip to the third round. We know J.J. McCarthy is out for the year. In our league, if a player does not play a single snap during a year, they do not get an automatic salary increase. So there's a really good reason to still draft JJ, because if you hold him on the IR, you essentially guarantee yourself a top 5 or 6 quarterback next year by using a pick this year. You have to have the room to kind of finesse that, but I was not in the right frame of mind. I just let Jalen Wright, I just took Jalen Wright over Lad, and I saw that, and I felt really bad. I did not get the running back I wanted in the first round, and I had to go quarterback there. So I'm moving my plans a lot, and it's stuff that I didn't really expect. So 2-6 comes, and I do trade the pick to Rob, who did snipe me, but in all honesty, that's part of the drafting, right? Like, that happens to everybody. It's not Rob's fault that he was aggressive and did exactly what he should have done. So he got to a spot where he could take who he wanted to take. Good for him. So I traded down. I traded for a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick, and a 5th next year for 2-6. I think it was 3-4, 4-2, and a 5th next year, if I'm not mistaken. He takes Keon Coleman, and Jimmy right behind me takes J.J. McCarthy. I thought he would slip to 3-2, which was my next pick, and I was going to take him and stash him there. And he would be an $8 quarterback in 2025. And Jimmy just beat me to the punch. I had Marshawn Lloyd correct on the switch to Wacker, and then you see the running back, Ray Davis, go to Wacker at 209, and Dorn takes Jalen Polk at 210, which is, I think, fair for where he should be. Going to be a good wide receiver. Just depends on how the quarterback situation works out in New England. So Dorn right now has 2 wide receivers, Jalen Polk and Xavier Worthy. Also has Jaden Daniels. Wack has Ray Davis, Trey Benson, Bo Nix, and Caleb Williams. So he's really kind of hitting it out of the park, and I know this. He's in position. He has the power position. He has no reason to trade unless he absolutely wants other picks and other drafts, but it looks like he's using this draft and his cap and free agency to go all in. And it's, at the end of the video, we'll talk about the standings where everybody looks as far as their roster construction, but he very well, if he hits free agency, the auction next week very well, he could end up being exactly in that spot. So he then takes Ben Sinnott at 3-1, and I get a little anxious at 3-1. I just lost my guy at 1-6. I just lost my guy at 2-4 because I was looking to get Bo Nix, as I again said at the beginning of this video. He was gone. So I couldn't get the running back help I needed. I had to take a different quarterback than I was technically planning on taking. And I think to myself, I just need to go and get the guy who I was going to draft in this round anyway. I was thinking 3-6 for Sanders, and I did not wait. I took him at 3-2. There's no difference in cost for the draft pick, so I figured, screw it. We'll do it live. So I took Jatavian Sanders. I'm very high on Jatavian Sanders. 0 drops and 67 catches at one point last year. Had 700 receiving yards. I think had arguably one of the best tight end years in Texas Longhorns history. He's only 21 years old, and the depth chart in Carolina is absolute buns, cheeks, and toilet paper. So, for the tight end position anyway. So, I was like, okay, we're going to take Jatavian here since I can't get JJ like I was planning. And, I guess there's a little bit of glimmer of hope there. I think this is where my draft personally starts to turn around, is right here. Matt takes Michael Penix Jr. next. Bit of a stretch in my opinion, but I'm also behind on what apparently he has been doing very well in camp and for preseason, into the fact that he's for sure the number 2 there, and he could even be starting games if Kirk Cousins is not productive as early as the end of this year. And so Michael Penix Jr. was a good pick there, better than I thought at the time. But just like at 3-1 and 3-2 with the tight ends, I got a little worried that somebody was going to come in and take Spencer. I was hoping to wait until the beginning of the 4th round to take Spencer Rattler. And I wanted Spencer. I think he's going to be the quarterback in New Orleans. And if not, not a big deal. But he had a really good preseason. He does have some good fundamentals. He's been working well and meshing well with the first unit. So I'm a bit high on Spencer Rattler. I do think if the Saints end up getting behind this year, they go to Rattler earlier. And he could be vital to a starting quarterback role during the bye-mageddon that is from weeks 11 to 14, should that happen. But just some side thoughts for why I liked Rattler. So Jatavian Sanders and Rattler at 3-2 and 3-4 respectively. 3-5, Taylor takes his 3rd wide receiver of the draft and Xavier Legette. I go defense and take Jared Verse. I've been high on Jared Verse since his UAlbany days, really. And then he transferred to Florida State, was a massive success as a defensive end. He's going to probably get a lot due to his run defense. He's probably going to see a lot of the field even on his rookie season for the Rams. So I think given our new defensive end scoring, it was a no-brainer. Not entirely sure why Rob was so high on Ricky Pearsall at 307. I mean, he's a good spot. He fell to 307. You should take him. That's a good value, but it's not like he's a starting wide receiver. So I don't see. Honestly, I see a fight between him and Cowing coming, and Cowing wasn't even drafted in this. So Adonai Mitchell going 3-8 to Matt. Good back-to-back here for Matt. Michael Penix and Adonai Mitchell to get some depth on both those positions. Taylor takes yet another wide receiver at 309, and Jermaine Burton could be fighting for wide receiver 3 snaps in Cincinnati. I go back to defense at 310 and take Byron Murphy. I am saving some salary cap at this point. I have taken defense my last 2 picks. I know that I need to. Those are $1 players. I know that I need to save some space on my cap, because now that I don't have a running back, I think I might have to potentially try and find one in free agency, right? I know that there's conflicting rumors coming out with my roster about Jerome Ford. You always keep in touch with your roster, especially through preseason, of who's going to be the top options for you. I know Saquon and Rachaad White are starters on my roster. I think that Jerome Ford is going to be more than suitable for more than half of the year. Beat reporters out of Cleveland are saying he has not played in preseason, and he will ramp up as he gets closer to the start of the regular season, because he's going to take a lion's share of the snaps at running back, somewhere in the 60% range. That is more than suitable for my running back 3. I do still have Zach Charbonnet. If Jalen Wright falls into some more snaps, he could become an option for that running back 3 or even running back 4 spot, that flex spot. So there's options for me. I'm not entirely set on going running back, even to this moment when I go into the auction. But I did save enough cap by going defense, and it helps that these picks right here, I did save myself enough cap, and I also traded, which we'll talk about shortly, for some other defensive players. At 4-1, Whack goes Braylon Allen, snipes him from me. Although I'm not so upset about that. Braylon Allen he's essentially a depth piece that I'm looking for longevity. He's very young, just turned 20 years old. He has great potential, I think. He's a beast of a 20-year-old. And, he weighs like 235 pounds, and he did like 13 bench presses at 320 pounds or something crazy. So he's a downhill back, essentially. But it's more of a 2 to 3 year player. Like, he could be a 2 to 3 year player. Unless you see Breece Hall get hurt. So I did like him. Whack sniped him from me. Don't blame Whack at all. Again, he had the positions. I tried to trade up to 4-1 multiple times. He said no. That's the way that works. At 4-2, which was the other part of the trade, 3-4 with Spencer Rattler, this pick right here, and then this pick down here at 402. Those are both that I got for the 206 that I traded. So I take Bucky Irving. He is the handcuff to Rashad. Needed it. I think at this point, with Braylon gone, I stuck with my gut and I said, let's just pivot at the running back position. Let's get somebody who, if let's say Rachaad White goes down with an injury, Bucky Irving's going to step up. Similar archetype player. Can do pass catching, also can handle the run. His size is not crazy different from Rashad White. So I did like the idea of taking him as the handcuff and attaching him for the running back room there. My mouse isn't moving. There we go. So then we get into the 40, where are we at? 403, and Wack takes Kamani Vidal. Maybe on the roster bubble a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see how that. It's going to be interesting to see how that works with them in Los Angeles. Looks like we are skipping a little bit. Oh, wow. Okay, there we go. At 404, I go Edgerrin Cooper. Again, defense. I just spent, it's going to be $6 for Bucky Irving to be the handcuff for Rashad White, which is, between Rashad White at $29 and him at $6, it's $35 for an entire backfield for most of the year. I just heard from Rashad White on an interview today that they have talked to him about continuing his 70 to 75% snap share. He is looking to be a lion's share of the snaps at running back again. He had 300 touches last year. He said, I do expect to see 300 again. And I've been told that is very much in the cards, so long as I stay healthy. Well, should that happen, so long he stays healthy, that's a valuable piece in any fantasy format. So I decided, going the $6 there, I'll take Edgerrin Cooper. I need linebacker help. Again, linebacker depth. He will also probably start from day one as the mid-side or maybe left side linebacker in Green Bay. Taylor takes another wide receiver with Malachi Corley at 405. Commissioner Zach Graham, shouts out. He takes his first pick. He takes Dallas Turner at 406, which is interesting. I did not expect him to go defensive end or defense at all, period. Jimmy follows with Liatu Latu out of Indianapolis at 407. We see a pair of offensive players to Colton at 408 and 409. He did trade into 409. He took Javon Baker at 408, Tyron Tracy at 409. Two what-if players, but honestly, for $6 again, why not? They're $6 each. And then Dorn takes his first defensive player, Junior Colson, for the Chargers, who may or may not start this year as well. Then we go into the 5th round, and I'm immediately sniped again. Matt takes Theo Johnson, who I was extremely high on. I was hoping he would slide to me at 5'4". Spoiler alert, he does not. He takes Theo Johnson at 501. I think Theo he's going to be a better tight end if he's not right now than Daniel Bellinger. He will probably usurp him for the starting role by the end of the year, similar to the way Jatavian Sanders is. There's just not a depth chart there. And he ran a 4.59 tight end for someone who's 6'6", 250-plus pounds. Man's a monster. He can block. He does need help route running, but he has pretty good hands. And he only went a few picks behind Jatavian Sanders. So I love this pick for Matt. He's $4, right? And so if it works out, great. If not, you honestly can probably hold him for 2 years and see what happens even next year if he doesn't jump into that starting role this year. Dorn takes Jalen McMillan at 502. A little bit of might be third in that offense for passing downs, third wide receiver. It's going to be between him and Trey Palmer. I've seen reports both sides. McMillan had a great camp. Trey Palmer is established with Baker. So Jimmy traded up to 5'3" to get Luke McCaffrey, if I'm not mistaken. And when he traded up, I was so worried that he was going to take. I was between Dylan Laub, who I thought he was going to take, and Audric Estime. And I decided to go with Laub. Estime is younger, but has a lot of names in front of him to become. He has Samaje Perine, Jaleel McLaughlin, and, of course, Javonte Williams. I don't see him having a big role in this offense until next year after an injury. So, I mean, unless there's something crazy happens and Javonte gets hurt and then Jaleel gets hurt and then you have Samaje and Audric and then you can see something this year. But they would both have to be hurt at the same time. I just don't see it. I decided to go with Laub, who has apparently not only impressed in camp, but he has better pass-catching chops than both Alexander Madison and Zamir White. So there is a potential for Laub to be there. And again, we're entering dart throw territory for these guys. You're talking about the third running back on the Giants, the third to fourth wide receiver on Tampa Bay, the third to fourth wide receiver on Washington, and Luke McCaffrey. I'm in dart throw land, and that's fine. Taylor at 5.5 goes Troy Franklin again. I don't understand what he's going to do with all these wide receivers, but sure, you do you, man. Jimmy takes Chop Robinson, defensive end in Miami at 5.6. Audric Estime to Doran at 5.7. I had the back-to-backs at 5.8 and 5.9. I go defense once again for both. I get my fourth safety and my fourth cornerback. Both should be starters. Both should see the field a ton this year, and that is just opportunity. That's all that is. So for $1, if they can give me 150 points each, there's so much fantasy value in those picks that has gone wasted. And if you're counting at home, at this point, after Javon Bullard at 5.10, I believe there are 9 defensive players off the board, and I have taken 6 of them. Maybe 5. 5 of them. So that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's more than 9. So there's 11 or 12. But I have half of them. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Somewhere in that range. I'm in the ballpark. But I'm saving salary by doing all this because my players go up. I have to get to 50 players. I started the draft at 25. I end up taking 13 draft picks in this draft. And I would say there's 4 or 5. I think there's 5 or 6 offensive. And then there's 4 or 5 that are going to be immediate defensive starters. But like 8 that are total defense. It all saves me money towards free agency. Which is one of the bigger... It's something that I like to do in this, is to draft those defensive players that people pass on. So many offensive players here that they passed on. They might have cap for it, but now I have more players, and I have a hair of flexibility for free agency. It's not better than a lot of other teams, but it is a hair of flexibility. So to the 6th round, we'll go quickly. Jimmy with Peyton Wilson out of Pittsburgh. Doran takes Jordan Whittington out of the Rams. I believe he traded up for that one. Jimmy takes Chris Braswell, defensive end, Tampa Bay. Zach goes Roman Wilson at 6.04. Good depth piece. Taylor takes Jared Wiley at 6.06. I totally just accidentally restarted. All right, there we go. We're back. I took Darius Robinson from Arizona at 6.06. Again, probably going to be a starter half the season. Another defensive player. I was eyeing Devontae Walker at 6.10 for the second time this draft. Rob sniped me. Much less important here, though. Malik Washington goes to Colton at 6.8. Trevin Wallace, the linebacker, goes to Jimmy at 6.9. And then Mr. Irrelevant, I took Brendan Rice. I was between Rice and I don't even remember who for my last pick. I can't even. It was another wide receiver. Oh, Cowing. It was Cowing. And of course, I picked this. I picked Brendan Rice. We end the draft. I checked the stats on ESPN. 10 minutes later, Cowing went for like three catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown, and had a jet sweep for 20 yards. And I was like, oh, well, there's somebody who's going to end up being going to be used a lot for Kyle Shanahan. So, all in all, the last 4 rounds 3 through 6. In my opinion, were very good for me, but I got so thrown off with the, being sniped in the first couple, in reality, the first pick that threw me off. And I did not know how to recover after taking Drake May because I didn't expect to have to go quarterback there. And I'm not mad about it, right? Like I needed a quarterback. But it does kind of makes me rethink everything from the rest of the draft all the way until free agency, and I wasn't prepared for that, which is no one else's fault. That's the way that it goes, right? It happens in the league all the time. It's no different for us. But it was a little heartbreaking, and I just kept asking myself, like, why am I like? How do I put this?
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way.
Yeah, just like that. So, it is just all a panic for no reason. There's 12 hours for these draft picks, which nobody wants to take 12 hours. But if I need to sit down and take 10 minutes and rethink this, and I thought I did, and I didn't. So, all in all, my draft grade, I'll give some quick draft grades. And actually, you know what? It's not fair that I only do one draft grade and grade myself. Let me give out my top, we'll say top 4 drafts that I see here and my reasons why. And that means it's time for a new segment called The List.
Made a list. Things that he put in order. Is it good? You decide. It's a list.
All right, so the first thing that I want to point out, we'll go back to the beginning on this if it'll let me, because it doesn't want to really play. There we go. I think the number 1 draft here, like if I'm going to start off with grades, I think Colton, I would put at number 4. I'm going to give him a B on this draft. And this doesn't mean there aren't any other, but these are some notables that I'll pull out. I'm going to give him a B, borderline B plus. Brock Bowers and Malik Neighbors are fantastic pickups, right? When we're talking about how to start off your draft for the first 8 picks, that's probably the best way to do it. We go down into 208, took Marshawn Lloyd, absolute depth piece, like bonkers depth piece that he needs. It backs up Josh Jacobs, right? And then really those are the 3 picks that give me this B to B plus. He doesn't have anything in the middle of the round. In the middle rounds, he did contact me for some draft capital, and I was not able to reciprocate, to be honest. It wasn't like even I didn't want to. This back-to-back here at 408 and 409, Javon Baker and Tyrone Tracy are absolutely fantastic picks. I'm going to give him a B to a B plus. I'm going to give Dorn a B plus A minus. I think the way that he handled this draft and hitting some depth pieces on offense, hitting the top, hitting Jaden Daniels, getting Xavier Worthy, I really think he did a fantastic job. The only thing that, in my opinion, getting Jalen Polk too at 210, this is why it's really tough for me to sit here and go he's not an A plus or an A minus or one of those things. It's just he had opportunities there and he took a lot of them, and that's honestly really good for him. So, my number 2, and it's in the same B plus A minus range, is going to go to Matt. I love the way Matt drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. to start off. He gets Michael Penix Jr. He gets Blake Corum. He gets the pieces that he wanted all over the place. That's just kind of the bottom line. He takes Theo Johnson, who I think is just as good of a depth tight end as Jatavion is. And, I mean, he was there. Let's just say that. Adonai Mitchell also. I can't forget about Adonai, another wide receiver depth piece. I really praise his drafting. I'd put him in Dorn. You could shake around the 2-3 right there. And, give them both that B plus A minus range, and you could go either grade, and I wouldn't argue too much about it. But by far the best draft here, in my opinion, was Wack. He needed the draft. He had really a horrible roster last year and a horrible break too, which isn't his fault. There's some injuries, right? But to start off, I mean, he nailed his first 6 picks, and then he took Braylon Allen at 4-1. He took Ben Sinnott for his tight end position. He ends up with Caleb Williams. He ends up with Bo Nix. He ends up with Trey Benson. He did. I mean, Ray Davis might be a bit of a stretch at 209. But let's just say that's his guy. I haven't talked to him, but let's just say he had his eye on him. That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense that you're going to go out and take your guy. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Big shouts out to everybody who did the draft. Big shouts out to Wack, who I think had the best draft. My own personal draft grade, I would give myself a C. Unfortunately, you got to nail those top 2 picks, those big picks, those first and that second rounder, and I think those are the ones that let me down. Might have done well later, but that doesn't help us at the beginning when you're supposed to hit those picks. So I made several trades. Hopefully free agency will be a big boom, and we will all be doing super swell when that comes around. That is not going to come until August 26th. So with that being said, the channel is going to be quiet for a little bit. I will be back with free agency next week. I am going away The only video that may go up would be my Dynasty, a follow-up to this one would be my Dynasty Top 5 Sleepers, in which I will talk about a Jatavian Sanders, a Theo Johnson, and a couple others that were either sniped from me or on my draft list that did not come to me. So that is the only thing that may come. But for now, that is all that we are going to do with this episode. My name is Derek from the Fantasy Flyer. As usual, we will end with our Bob Barker tribute. You can jam out. We will see you guys next week for free agency. Take care, Fiddy Tree Land.
Bob Barker reminding you, help control the pet population. Have your pet spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.